There are two sides of the same coin, basically. Like when you push on the pain, you get pleasure. When you push on the pleasure, you get pain. That's what happens. That's why instant pleasure, it's so addictive and dangerous.
So these are some of the things that you get with modernism and the technology that was designed around comfort and what we call efficiency, like moving goods, taking a banana from where it grows in Africa and Costa Rica and getting it to Siberia or Ontario, Canada. These types of things, there's technology that makes things convenient for us and can feed us fruits that are not native year-round, but it also produces a lot of toxicity.
I use sometimes his friends. It's like some of them, they say you need to try everything in life, and I'm like, I agree and disagree as well, because I don't know. Of course, it's an extreme example. I don't need to be hit by a car to know it hurts.
Hi, this is Sifu Slim, author of The Aging Athlete. In this book, you're going to get to hear about two different groups of former high-performance athletes. One group, which is made up of 90% of the former athletes, does not do physical activity on a regular basis and tends to suffer the consequences of a sedentary lifestyle. The other group, which is made up of 10% of the former athletes, is doing physical activity on a regular basis and tends to thrive through the aging process, or at least has a better chance at coping with the aging process. We could have taken these folks to a lab and done all kinds of tests on them. Instead, we slowed them down and sat them down and asked them, in their own words, to describe why they're wired the way they are, so that we all, former athletes and non-athletes, can use some of their inspirational and motivational and mindset lessons in our own lives. I hope you pick up a copy today. You can go to theagingathlete.com, and when you have a chance to read it, I'd love to hear back from you to find out what your thoughts are on the stories of these aging athletes.
Hi there, Sifu Slim here, and today we've got a wonderful discussion about comfort versus pain, and then we're going to put pleasure in there. And so there's quite a discussion that we put together for you about these subjects, and they are really important in life because life has all these challenges. We've got to go through things, we've got to climb mountains, we've got to dig deep, all these types of things on this journey, and we're looking at the outcome. What do we want to get out of each moment, each day, and our life? Just look at the outcome that you want, and that's goal setting. So outcome is a nice way to say goal setting. What do you want with your day, your moment, with your life, your interactions? Okay. So I'm with Ayoub. Say hello, Ayoub.
Hey everybody, good morning from my side. And yeah, today is gonna be a really interesting and good discussion that's hopefully gonna give you more insights about the importance of comfort and how to use pain and pleasure, even combined. So you will, I hope some of you will be surprised.
That's a good way to do it. We've got a surprise for you today, audience, so stay tuned. So I was talking to Ayoub before we went on camera and started recording about the process of putting something together. Now, you could go into an interview and wing it, and many times it might come out fine. But if you're looking at a subject that's not part of your daily conversation or something you've written books on, and it's just another neat discussion topic that you want to put together in an organized way, how do you do that? How do you put that out there? And so Ayoub, you tell me in a minute what you did, and then I'll share what I did.
Yeah, basically what I do is I start from the subject, so from the keywords, and then I look at how those keywords affect me or other people in their lives. So then, for example, I try to think about how they affect them in I don't know, like in their professional life, in their personal life, in their maybe political life. Yeah, I look at basically the macro areas on how a certain subject, whatever it is, affect people. That's what I do generally.
Yeah. So another thing that I did is I looked up quotes that relate to comfort, pain, pleasure, these types of things. And so if we want to, we could delve into that. So when I put those on the paper and I put thoughts about my journey and the journey I've helped other people in terms of my coaching, my interactions with other people about their journey, I took a look at what I think of comfort, pain, pleasure, these types of things. And so I put it on my Google Doc. And then once I put it there, it becomes part of something that I'm working on. So it's a project. It's a project on a Google Doc. Just like a project of building something or repairing your car, painting your house, raising your family, being kind to your grandmother, whatever, it's a project that you're doing at this moment. So then when I went out and I did my exercise program, I did some tennis, I did reading, I did walking around Vienna where I'm currently located. All of those things that I put down on the paper are still on the computer, but I'm starting to think about them and I'm putting them in something that I can personalize. I can pull out experiences of my life, of other people's journeys, and then I can put that into a context that I think tells the story of those words. So what do you think about that? Did that happen to you, Ayoub, when you put it together, those thoughts started to pop into your head about what you wanted to do with some of the things you had written down?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. The thing is, I think when we think about something, so let's say we write it down, when we go and do some other things, so let's say we play sports, we go for a walk, the brain, it's working in the background. So it's creating connections, it's looking at links. So maybe you are running, and again, let's say your subject was pain, then you are running, and then you can be like, okay, how does it relate? So now I'm feeling really tired. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it pain? What's gonna happen later? So you can, it's easier to dig deeper because not only you are thinking about it, but you are experiencing it. So you create even that emotional connection between the concept.
Yeah, that's important. The emotion is one of the most profound, the deepest ways we can reach ourselves, tapping into our emotions, and reach other people. So in terms of helping them with sharing knowledge, sharing stories, sharing the journey, and helping them, tapping into the emotions is so important. Would you agree, Ayoub?
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, learning is emotional in the sense that when let's say you are doing a mathematical equation, let's say, I mean, something not too hard, hopefully. When you make a mistake, actually what you are experiencing in a certain sense is pain. So from the pain of that mistake, which I mean, hopefully is not that much. I heard of people crying because of equations. So that's why I'm saying that. That pain is your teacher. And actually, this is a really interesting concept because when I was researching video game addictions, basically what happens in the brain is that when let's say you have some anxiety, right? You are experiencing a negative emotion, some pain, some anxiety, some doubt, some nervousness. What video games do, basically, they calm down your amygdala. But by calming down your amygdala, you're not able to experience fear or pain, which is like let's call it it's your driver to learn. So paradoxically, you are cutting down your, let's say, your learning circuit, which that's really interesting because actually I read some research and they show that when you do that over and over and over, you are basically reducing your capacity to solve problems, which someone might say, but I know many video gamers that are really good at solving problems. And the big problem with that is that they are good at solving closed-ended problems. So go and do 10 of this. But as you know, Sifu, like real life is not really a closed-ended problems. It's an open-ended. Like it's not let's say someone tells you he wants to get in a relationship. There is no like clear start and end. It's not a mission. You have to get creative. Like it's not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you cut down your ability to learn, let's say with a video game, now it's the first example that came to mind, then you put yourself in a situation in which you are less able to solve open-ended problems. Again, finding a relationship, finding a job, doing an interview. That's the side effect of it. And yeah, now I know I went a bit on a tangent, but
No, very helpful.
It links really well, actually.
Yeah, no, it's important to, when you have something pop in that's part of that thought process, share it and see what happens with it. We can look at it, we can examine it, we can test it. While you were speaking, I thought about the simple explanation I gave for putting some things down on a Google Doc and then advancing it. It's the same thing I do when I write books or articles. I start out, I add some more, I delete some more, I reorganize it, I read it over, and that's called rewriting. And when you rewrite things on your computer, you can get them better, and it changes the way you think. And so I think the advantage of going through a school, whether you stop at 18 or you stop at 35 with your degrees, you've been tested, let's say in college, 5 or 6 subjects per semester. You've been tested each and every day by having to produce something, edit something, solve something, and then you have the people you're in school with testing you on those things, helping you, challenging you, and you're helping them. And then you have your teacher and the teacher's assistant at a university looking at all those things, examining it, looking how you did, citing ways you can improve it, marking wrong on the equation that you didn't answer correctly. And then they give you, through now in the modern era, they give you a website where it shows the proper way to do that. And so that's, I think, the thing that I would take away from education. You've been tested more and you've had to solve more things than if you were just maybe digging a ditch or cleaning. Now, those things are important. I'm not saying they're not, but they are doing the similar things all the time. And the thing that you're mainly testing is how hard can you do the same thing over and over? And that's different in terms of your brain and your neurology and the advancement of those 2 items than being in a school system where you're being challenged all these different directions each and every day for a year or 2 or 3 decades. What do you think about that, Ayoub?
Yeah, I mean that's really important actually, because as you said, the repetition. So when you get used to, when you make your brain get used to like, okay, solving problems, then you're not running away from it, right? It's like you can either train it well, you can either train your brain well, or you can make him train himself. And that's not gonna end well, because as we know, like our little brain tends to, how can I say it? It tends to want to put us into too much comfort because of, I don't know, maybe the fear of making mistakes, the fear of failing. And yeah, it's up to us, to be honest, to understand that mechanism, to understand that mistakes and pain are part of learning, are actually the main part of learning. And yeah, I mean, and go with that. And as you said, like whether we wanna stop school at 18 or at 35, the main thing is that keep finding meaningful problems to solve and solve them.
Yeah.
Because that's, in my opinion, what's gonna make you like progress and grow in whatever endeavor someone's decide, which could be sports. Even sports, it's a problem solving activity. Like when you play against somebody else, he is the problem. His technique is the problem. You're trying to solve a puzzle. So that's problem solving as well. It doesn't have to be, as we said, like our beautiful equations or some chemical or physical problems, let's say, physics or chemistry.
I have a quote I wanted to share, and it's from the Anasazi Foundation. The 7 paths changing one's way of walking in the world. Boy, that sounds like a fun thing to read. So here's the quote. No man is as wise as Mother Earth. She has witnessed every human day, every human struggle, every human pain, and every human joy. For maladies of both body and spirit, the wise ones of old pointed man to the hills, for man too is of the dust, and Mother Earth stands ready to nurture and heal her children. So there's healing involved. So when we talked about pain and how do we get to pleasure, which is very fleeting, it's not always their pleasure. It's on the occasion, there's a pleasurable moment. There's moments that are very discomforting. They're on the news when we watch, there's discomfort. When we realize the idea of being born, that's a very discomforting, uncomfortable thing for a woman to have to carry this expanding person inside of her and then give birth. Very uncomfortable, very challenging. And the pleasure at the end is mother and father get to hold the baby, and it brings them something they never had before. It brings the world something it never had before. So these journeys, I think, are really important. But if we step out of us, the man, the woman, the child, any group, any individual, and we look up, or we look wide, or we look below, there's that energy of Mother Earth who's witnessed everything. And she has to laugh and cry and lead us and be patient with us and help us heal and also provide for us many things that Mother Earth does on this journey. And I think if you look at it from the point where you remove from the here and now, at least on occasion, look at it in a bigger way, you'll see that the journey has already been lived by hundreds of millions of people, billions of people before us. And so our journey is just another journey, and our job is to do a good job with the gift that we've been given. Your thoughts, Ayoub?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's you are absolutely right on that. It's again, this comes down, I think, to values. I think that we all have some intrinsic values that we just know, like some things are bad or some things are good, and then there is like the gray zone. And the gray zone, I think, it gets whiter or darker with knowledge. So with knowledge, it's easier to distill that gray. Let me say, a bit philosophical, I know, but I think it comes down to that. So as you said, many people have already lived this journey, their journey. So something that I like to do, for example, is learning from the experiences of those people. So like an example that I use sometimes is friends. It's like some of them, they say, you need to try everything in life. And I'm like, I agree and disagree as well, because I don't know. Of course, it's an extreme example. I don't need to be hit by a car to know it hurts. I don't know to do a certain type of stuff to know it's bad for me. I just know. Someone else made that mistake already. Many people made that mistake already. I can look at it scientifically. For me, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, and I can take my decision from that. I don't need, again, like to burn myself to know it hurts. I know, we know, unless proven wrong, of course. I mean, so yeah, it's actually a really important concept that you said, to, again, that people already lived this journey and did incredible things, incredibly good things, and incredibly bad things. So from that we can learn, we can extract what we can use for our journey to serve ourselves, to serve our families, to serve others, hopefully. And that again comes down even to values, because maybe in some culture that's not really a thing. I don't know, I'm just making it up now. I don't know every culture, so. And yeah, maybe like there are some cultures that are more collectivists, and others are like a bit more individualistic. So some of the things you would normally do in one, you wouldn't normally do in the other. And those will have like two clearly different trajectories. Because if you take something and you apply it on a large scale, over the time you will have an effect. Maybe people will be more isolated. I don't know. Maybe people will be more, maybe even depressed, because there is less human connection. And on the other side, you do the same. That's actually a thing that I try to do. I try to think of concept as, okay, let's take this concept. Let's say that is being normalized today, but let's do something extreme. Let's pretend everybody's gonna doing it, and let's see how society would progress or digress. And let's take something else, and I like to do it for relationships, for example. Let's use this relationship model and use it for everybody and see what happens. Let's use this other and see what happens. And that's, I mean, it's a bit extreme of an example, but gives you really like the idea of, okay, should we normalize this or not? That's the process I use. So I just apply it to a big sample and see what's gonna happen to that sample. Of course, I try to link it with some science, with some social science as well, and see like, okay, where would we be if everybody just did this? It's interesting. It's something that yeah, maybe you should try. Maybe you should try. It's an interesting experiment.
I have another quote. Do you want to hear one?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
All right, this one is from the book, famous book. I encourage everyone to read it. And it came out in the late 1990s. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel, written by a professor who speaks 15 languages. I believe he's still alive. His name is Jared Diamond. And the end of the Guns, Germs, and Steel title is The Fates of Human Societies. So here's what he says about the Native Americans and the diseases that the Europeans brought. He says, it's striking that Native Americans evolved no devastating epidemic diseases to give to Europeans in return for the many devastating epidemic diseases that Indians received from the old world. I've thought about that before in my past, but until I ran across this quote this past week, I haven't realized how interesting of a topic that is, you know, evolution and diseases.
You know what's the first thing that came to my mind when you read that quote? It's a problem exportation. So not just diseases.
Exporting our problems around the globe.
Yeah, yeah, and making them a problem for someone else that doesn't have that problem. Which is here, the first examples that come to mind, I think they are off topic for YouTube. So I think it's better if I don't mention them, but there is. I see this concept of, I don't know, if the West has, let's say, a problem, and then they want to go to maybe, I don't know, third world country and tell them, yeah, this should be your problem as well. And they are like, yeah, but we have other problems. People they don't work. There is poverty, and for us, this is your problem, it's not ours.
Who comes to mind when you think of the most scientifically intelligent person of the 20th century?
Actually, I'm really bad with names. Like
Big gray hair riding a bicycle. Albert?
Yeah, I think Albert Einstein.
There you go. So a lot of people would think of Albert Einstein, and when he put together his equations and he knew about energy, he knew about destructive force, he knew about stars and the power of forces in the solar system. And they came to him, the people who were working on nuclear fission and atom bomb technology, they came to him to write the letter to Franklin Delano Roosevelt in, I think, 1942, somewhere in right around there in the beginning of World War II. They said, look, the Germans are working on this technology. Other people are probably working on it. We got to team up. We got to take the scientists we have. Some of them left Europe and some of them left Germany and wound up in America. And let's work on this technology, as horrible as it is, because if they get it and we don't, we're sitting ducks. We're going to be victims of this technology, and they'll take over the world, the people who have this. Einstein knew that it was a Pandora's box. Once that technology got out, the world was going to be in a severe problem. Now, there are people using it to, develop energy. There's other things you can do with the nuclear technology. It's very helpful. Telescopes, magnetic resonance imaging, I believe, came out of the early sciences of these engineers working in, scientific related things that, take it from the defense industry, take it over to the health industry, all these things. So the 20th century was the first time where a scientist like Einstein and the rest of the world knew that we could destroy ourselves and we could pollute the planet to such a degree it would be unlivable. It would be like having a volcano rain down the black dust and toxic fumes over the vast parts of the entire planet. So these are some of the things that you get with modernism and the technology that was designed around comfort and what we call efficiency, like moving goods, taking a banana from where it grows in Africa and Costa Rica and getting it to Siberia or Ontario, Canada. These types of things, there's technology that makes things convenient for us and can feed us fruits that are not native year round, but it also produces a lot of toxicity and damages the planet using all of the fuels and burning all of the fuels to move all of these goods around the world. So I'll open it up for you, Ayoub, on some of these topics.
Yeah, I think I read I don't remember in which book, but basically there was this discussion about knowledge and wisdom. So the knowledge, it's I'm able to create an atomic bomb. So the wisdom is what do I do with an atomic bomb? And that's the wisdom part. That's when values are really important. So let's say I'm studying a specific technology. Why do I study it? What do I want to do with it? Is it for the good? Is it for the better? Is it for the worse? And why is it good? And why is it bad? So I think it's really a matter of is this, let's say, technological advancement worth it for the planet, for ourselves? And again, that comes down to values, to societal values. So what is that you value? What is that you don't value? Or what is that you don't value enough? So that's yeah, that's my thoughts about it. It can be hard, I understand, because I mean maybe the dollar sign is too bright sometimes. I can understand it. It's part of us. And yeah, it's really, I mean, I don't have an answer for that, in the sense that I wouldn't know what will be like the optimal solution, but I think there are enough smart people to know it. That's my idea about that.
One thing that I started out with when I was 32 is I took my television and I put it in my storage. I never took it out. And what I wound up doing with that television is I sold it to somebody for not very much money, just to be done with it. But the step was get it out of my living room, put it in storage, and do my master's degree, do my reading and writing, my fitness, my sports, my connection with others, my job. Do those things without the 2 to 4 hours. To some people, it's 20 hours where their TV is taking up their energy and it's creating things that they probably don't want. And it's such a difference. My life starting out when I was a kid in the 60s with 3 channels, and then in the 1970s going up to 15 maybe. And then by the end of the 80s, you had the MTV and all these cable channels, which seemed to me like it was limitless, because if there were 100 some channels, it seemed like that was already too many. And now it's limitless because you can watch almost anything if you have the funds or the hacking ability to go on Hulu, and you can go on any of these websites and you can watch anything from anywhere. You could watch a Russian TV show from the 1960s, a news program. You know, you could look into almost anything, and it's so many options that I think it eats up our time. And when I watch YouTube, they know what I like. The algorithm, the YouTube software, they know what I like. And so when I click on YouTube to look something up, over on the right, of course, we all know that they're going to pop up 10 other videos that they think I would like based on my recent and my not so recent past. And I had it happen to me last night that it got me about 40 minutes of my time. Now, did I like the video I was watching? Did it give me some escapism? It did. Could I have done some more reading in those 40 minutes that I think might have been better? If I had the ability at 9 o'clock at night, that might have been a better way to wind down my day. So even though I got rid of the television, YouTube is the current replacement for some of that. But I would suggest to other people that even if it's painful for you to get rid of your television, and if you insert things, connection with others, your own learning, doing a project at home, going for a walk, going to the gym, getting out and about, going to a cafe and connecting with yourself and reading a book there. So many things that I would suggest that are more beneficial if we want to talk about the outcome of your day and of your week and of your life by getting rid of the television, because it's too strong an addiction for most people to do just for a little bit. Your thoughts, Ayoub?
That's interesting, because I had some people send me some DMs the other day on Twitter, because now I'm it's not that I changed, but I niched down a bit my studies, let's say. So now I'm doing social media addiction, basically phone addiction. I'm studying about that. And I had some people ask me, I cannot stop watching YouTube. It takes a lot of time. TikTok. And you know what? I came up with something which I tried myself, which I just gave it a name because I like giving name to things. I called it PSU. It's a proactive social media usage. Because normally what happens is that when we use social media or YouTube, let's say we're watching a video, we are kind of passive. So the people are talking and we are just, not really learning, because it can be just to wind down, just to relax. So what I did tell them to do was a really simple thing. I said, every time you scroll, every time you watch a video, I wanted you to have a notebook, so with a pen and paper, and summarize what are you doing, what are you watching. And the reason for that is, one, it brings awareness. Because when you watch, you're not really using your brain in the sense that you are thinking about it. You're a bit passive, right? It's like your prefrontal cortex, I think, I don't know like the studies, but I think it will be really, really, really like shut down in a sense. So what I thought was, what about activating our frontal cortex? Why we do the thing that we normally do, like, let's say to relax, even though it's not that big of a relax. It depends. So I said, let's try to make it proactive. So before we were talking about pain and pleasure. So I was thinking about how can I put some pain in this normally just pleasurable activity. So the pain will be your attention. So now we need to focus. So now if you're scrolling and we are watching videos about some cute cat, I want to write down, I watched a video about a cute cat. So then you're going to look at it after and ask yourself, was it worth it or not? Maybe it was. I'm not saying it wasn't, but at least you've done it with proactivity. You were the one deciding. That's for me, like, that's the main part. I am deciding to go to YouTube and search about, I don't know, cannabis addiction. I decided, not the algorithm. Another thing that I do for YouTube, for example, for my clients, I tell them, don't enter with your account. You have to log out and be the one searching for the video. I don't want the algorithm to tell you what you have to look for. It's convenient, I understand, but if you want to be the protagonist, so the proactive part, you need to be the one searching for it. And I want you to take notes. The experience needs to be proactive. You need to pay with something, so with your attention, and then you get the pleasure back. So the pleasure will be the knowledge, for example, or at least the awareness. I'm spending too much time watching cats and dog videos. Maybe, I don't know. It can help, because some things, unless you see them, you cannot really you cannot really say, oh, I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. So by taking notes on what you do, it's easy. Oh, okay, I just spent 2 hours watching people pranking each other. Okay, at least you know. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't or you should. I think you should know at least. You should have complete awareness of what's happening on your life. Because many times what we lack is awareness. It's not like a plan. It's
that's really important. Be aware of what you're doing. Write down a contract with yourself. Write down the steps of why you went into YouTube, what happened while you were there, and what your outcome was, what you got out of it. And we only have so many minutes in a day and so many hours in a life. So we really want to use this to our benefit. And this brings me into seeking pleasure. So I'm going to share what famous MMA legend, who's probably in his 40s now, George St. Pierre, wrote about pain and pleasure. He said, he's from Canada, really fun guy to listen to, Georges St. Pierre.
Is he from Quebec? I think he's from Quebec, Canada.
Yeah, he's from Quebec. He's a native French speaker.
Yeah, like former, I think, UFC welterweight champion.
Yeah, he's won maybe two plus divisions, and he's one of those people who can gain and lose weight with based on what he needs to do. So that's a mesomorph build, and those are people who can put on tissue and they could lose it if they need to. That's what he is. He walks around in pounds at 200 pounds, 205 pounds, and many of his fights were in a division where he got down to 170 something, 180 something. And so a strong person that can walk around in a bigger body, but he can lose it in the 3 months leading up to a fight and come in really strong. And so he's fast, he's strong, he's a good learner. But anyway, I'll share what Georges St-Pierre says about pain and pleasure. He says, I don't believe there is pleasure in life. I believe there is only relief of pain. We have to suffer to be on top. Any thoughts on that, Ayoub?
I think it's interesting because I think it links to what we said before about, I like to call it payment because it's a payment at the end of the day. The same way we would pay, I don't know, money to buy a bottle of water. It's the same, it's similar to the same way that we will pay with effort, with time, with attention to pass an exam. That's what we are doing. So yeah, it's probably relief of the pain, but to be honest, I like to look at them as the same, like they are two sides of the same coin, basically. Like when you push on the pain, you get pleasure. When you push on the pleasure, you get pain. That's what happens. That's why instant pleasure, it's so addictive and dangerous, because it's a bit like stealing, right? When you steal, you get the money, but then you get the police.
Yeah.
And you get to pay back your debt. So you need to pay back your what you stole with interest, so plus the fine. And for us will be like, okay, you smoke, for example. Okay, you feel pleasure. Then you get the craving of the smoke, which will be the painful part, because it's like a seesaw, right? If I push something, then I don't get back to normality right away. First, I need to pay what I stole, right? Because, nature is fair. Sometimes it seems like it isn't, but it's really fair. So if you do something, if you take something that is not yours, sooner or later, you're gonna pay it back. And the interest in that sense will be, so the fee will be, I don't know, like your maybe you start to get cancer a bit, maybe you breathe worse. So it's like you pay 2 times. You pay with the craving, which is the pain, and the long-term health issues. So again, nature is really fair if you don't deserve what you get.
The seeking of pleasure is so common in humanity, seeking pleasure, seeking ease, seeking comfort. We're motivated, intrinsically motivated to seek those things, where if I go to my grandparents' era and people before them, it was more about survival. It was more about helping the people close to you so that they could survive. And you realize there was so much responsibility and there was going to be so much pain that it was normal. Pain and discomfort, long working hours, carrying heavy loads, dealing with very difficult challenges. This was so normal. But then, and it happened during my lifetime and a little bit in my father's lifetime. And, post World War II, you have this era of modern conveniences. You also had the notion of the government being able to hand out money, benefits, food. That started earlier than the end of World War II, to people who needed it. And so these are things that were changes. There were, recent changes within the last 100 years that happened to society, and it changed the way people rolled, as they say, changed the way they thought. Now there's a lot of talk over the last 20 plus years of the entitlement generation. Younger people and people slightly younger than I am are part of that generation. Doesn't mean people in my generation aren't part of it, but they look at a life and they say, I don't want to do that, but I want this outcome. I want these results. Tell us if you have any thoughts, Ayoub, on some of this.
Yeah, I mean, It's absolutely correct, actually. It's the generations, and I can tell you, like, if I take myself when I was 18 and I take an 18 years old now, of course, on average, it's a lot softer. Everything is much more instantaneous. And but I think like there is a reason for that, because if I make it a priority to just seek pleasure, I'm easier to monetize because I'm just seeking something outside of myself. But if for me, as you said, like the goal was the goal once was to survive, so it was more something internal, intrinsic. So something intrinsic is not monetizable because it's within you, it's not outside of you. If I sell you the concept of happiness, which we talked about in the last podcast, then you're gonna always be looking for things outside of you, which you may or may not be able to control fully. So it's like putting your faith on something that might be there or might not be there. And that's what creates like the happiness and unhappiness. And the reverse, which you said before, when you focus more on your internal motivation, on your family, on your village, on your community, that's internal. That's more, it's like a more of a serotonin, let's say, approach rather than a dopamine approach. Because dopamine, it's really easy to monetize. Dopamine, I give you junk food, I get your money. I give you a cigarette, I get your money. I give you alcohol, I get your money. I give you some type of not so good entertainment, and I get your money. It's really easy to consume, because again, dopamine wants more dopamine. Because once the dopamine, so let's say 100, 200 years ago, the dopamine that you will get, it will come always from struggle. So I go out to hunt and to find maybe some fruits. So when I walk for kilometers, so I put in the pain again. That's the most important part is, are we paying for the dopamine that we're getting? So I walk a lot. Finally, I found the river. My brain releases dopamine because I found my objective, but I paid for it. So that's good. So next time it takes me less time to find that river, because I already did it. And the same mechanism is actually used for addiction. So an addiction is like, it's just someone that tells you, look, the river is here at 1 centimeter distance, and you can go whenever you want. In that case, you break the equation because there is no effort involved. It's just one click of the mouse. It's just one phone call, and the food is at your house. You see? That's what we have today with this too much comfort is we strip down the pain pleasure equation from the pain part. But again, since, as we said, nature is fair, we can't get this pleasure for free. So from one way or the other, we need to pay it back with pain. And that's why in really the developed countries, depression is increasing, anxiety is decreasing, because that's the side effect. And again, that's because we are getting used to, without knowing it, we are getting used to stealing, actually. That's what we are doing. We're not that different from someone that steals money. Actually, no. He puts in some effort, actually, because he needs to be an expert in his craft to steal. I'm not saying go steal, guys. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, at least, I mean, and I'm trying to be optimistic here. He has some skills. We don't. If I smoke a cigarette, there is no skill involved. I'm just getting pleasure for free. And then, as we said before, I need to pay it back. So I cannot run as fast. I cannot run as good. My body is not as sharp. That's the payment. So, but again, that's the part of the knowledge. That's why knowledge is so important, because when you have knowledge, then you are the one deciding. I decide to smoke this cigarette, even though I know the damaging effects, but I'm the one at least deciding. Not saying it's good, not saying it's bad, but at least there is the proactivity part. But often, and that's the unfortunate part, we are just prey of our vices. We are just a prey. We don't really know why. We just say, okay, it's normal. Everybody does it. But we never really ask ourselves, okay, but why do I do it?
So I have some thoughts on some of the things you said and how it relates to my project called the Aging Athlete Project. And the quote on George St. Pierre and then some of the things you shared, Ayoub, made me think this way. So George St. Pierre wanted to be on top. That was his goal. He came from being picked on by one kid in his neighborhood. There's a great story on the Joe Rogan show about him talking about seeing that person later in life when George was in his late 20s and a world champion, and the other person was broken down, maybe even homeless. But he used to get picked on by this bigger, stronger, older kid on the bus every day and just get beat up. And so some of these things, it's not uncommon in the martial arts and boxing centers to see people like even Mike Tyson, who was picked on as a kid, that developed this drive to learn these skills to not only defend, but to attack and compete in a physical combat type sport. So what I wanted to share about these types of people who want to be on top, and that's the story of many of these athletes whom I've interviewed, is that they put so much energy into being the best that they can be that they run out of steam on taking care of themselves. So they either break themselves down, mind, body, and spirit, and they've given up their youth for this pursuit. They may have made money, they may not have made money. And then they leave that high performance thing at 18, 20, 30, or in the case of like somebody who worked with their body, like a construction person, a contractor, they leave at age 65 and they don't move anymore. And that's 90% of the people who have physical jobs. They retire and they don't move anymore, no matter what the age. And if you want to read about that, take a look at my book on Amazon called The Aging Athlete. And so there's suffering, and that's what George talked about. And that's a big point of why these athletes don't want to go out and do what I did this morning, which was go out and do a warm-up, a stretching, practice tennis, and then do a workout. So it was about 2 hours, and I had to use a lot of energy, a lot of focus. And at age 60, I have to do a lot of care because I don't want to be smacking something unless everything's kind of aligned and warmed up and feeling good. Because you could hurt yourself doing all these things. You can hurt yourself when you're 15, but more likely, and if you're a fit person, to hurt yourself when you're 60 than when you're 15. Things get stiffer, things get more restrictions, what have you. So suffering, what George said about suffering to be on top, these athletes, they leave and they don't want to suffer anymore. They want to be left alone. They want peace. They want tranquility. They don't have any energy left to put mind, body, and spirit focus and hard into what they're doing. And so that's the challenge I have with my third book about raising child athletes, is to keep these people balanced so they know when to back off, when they know when to go. But you can't go all the time because you will burn out. We talked about Steve Jobs and Bruce Lee and burnout in a different video, and maybe share your thoughts and we'll wind down this interview, but I'm going to send you a link so we can talk a little bit more for a few minutes after this interview, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's finding balance when let's say when you want to excel at something. It's kind of tricky because you are not only competing with yourself, but you are competing with somebody else. So I saw some videos actually about some MMA fighters in which there is this fighter that he's running, and his friends tell him like, your opponent is doing it twice as much as you. So with that mentality, I think it's really easy to get to that zone in which you break your body. You're not just on the breaking part of your body. So you are, yeah, a bit the stronger. I mean, I know you know about George St. Pierre, so I think you have you know a bit about, like, let's say, mixed martial arts as a, there are a lot of disciplines there. There is striking, there is grappling, there is everything. So you can get hurt basically anywhere. Your leg, your ankle, your shoulder. And if you push, because I think they train like twice or maybe even 3 times a day, doing multiple disciplines, it's really easy to get hurt. And that's why people fight once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, and not every weekend, as a football player will do.
Yeah. So I'm Sifu Slim with Ayoub, my website, theagingathlete.com. And we welcome your comments below this video. We hope that you subscribe and you like. Do you want to share your handle, Ayoub?
I don't have a YouTube channel at the moment, but I have a Twitter channel, which I just rebranded, which is at coach_Jacob 2 underscores. That's my new handle. Just did a little bit of rebranding last week. And yeah, feel free to check it out.
And I'm going to wind this one down, but I'll send you a link in about a minute and we'll have a little bit more. Aloha, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.